Hang it up. Thank you.
Right here, right now. So this is the game where it's more the fight. That's a one, and it's a bad one. I have a production, but I do have a problem.
They are coming from that.
Yeah, so we have explaining each of the posters and then we can.
to the back here. The piece back here.
She's explaining. They end up somewhere in
Oh, it's okay. That's funny. They're going the other way. Excuse me.
And so we take them through this process to think of overall everyday life. They say that they're always down the scale. And they take it. How do you keep that much their shoes? What I want.
So then for the picture.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And the next thing is of them to understand that it is their choice. Peace or not. Like it's the thinking they something. But asking to create now we how could I go? And then they write something.
So, you can, yeah, you can actually try as well if you want to say. This is like. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
So do you want?
Behind you.
Oh, because you're clearing the.
Next one.
Can you show us? Your dad.
Number. Diversion हुआ.
They have something that's UN.
Yes.
The Japanese people to the UN. So that in order to help bring about the to all the delegates, ask the delegates for their
NGO.
all over the world. Well, also underneath there's the dust, normally Nagasaki and Hiroshima and the schooner mix them together. Create them and they're underneath them. But the whole idea was to melt all the fluids from the all over the world, finding examples of unity. And there's this run by the Secretary General twice a year. One in September at the General Assembly. And then one in April. And so the Secretary General brings the peace. So we have our own peace now. And so if any of you would like to bring the peace now, in that ringing, you have a vision and you have a blessing for the world. And then bring the peace bell and then you have a writing card, place your. And meanwhile, just very recommend about the UN. This is the basic idea. Then you like to bring them.
Still walking.
Am I blocking you?
What is the name? You know the name of this particular stand?
I don't know the brand, but it's called Tripod.
What?
Tripod.
Yeah. But again, where she's written in the chart.
Number. I know.
Special जगह है.
One by one, it's like crack. One by one.
Lavin bhai, Lavin bhai.
And we say these the pathway, but still the ways we can explore peace through thoughts, words, and actions. So our group is exploring peace through thoughts, words, and actions. This pathway is the pathway of thought. So you're walking along this pathway, and we say that peace begins with a smile. So you're looking at yourself, and you have to smile, and you have to feel one peaceful thought for yourself. How do you feel? Very good. So you use this, and you have to write your feeling on it. You have to write very good. So then, this is our peace tree. So Asha Didi, this is our peace tree, and this is perennial. So that means if you put your feeling on it, the feeling will become perennial, everlasting. And so we say that whatever you're feeling, that vibration will spread in the whole world, and that is your contribution to peace through thoughts to the entire world. Feeling on this. They are doing activity. Peace.
Go on that side. She's calling me. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're blocking.
Experiment when you were you're always. But what are the characteristics? Some words like there is some subtitle. I love and then he counted this part there. ये रखिए यहाँ से आओ आप यहाँ से आइए यहाँ से नेक्स्ट यहाँ से हम आ गए No, because look, it's in the way.
Number, good. One more from me.
अब यहाँ से आना है यहाँ से आइए Banana. Then you can stick in this color and enjoy these without being disturbed by anyone. And then okay, आपको हाथ मारना। शो करना सेल्फी निकालनी है
सबको दे दो
और कौन है या पीछे
Om Shanti.
सभी पकड़ो
There is an announcement about the talks. There are some talks. And the
अभी मैं सेल्फी लेती हूँ ना जाके
organized in the classroom.
सर आ जाओ
From 10:30 a.m. to 3:30. Please attend these coming sessions as well. These talks are very interesting talks. And lunch will be served after 1 p.m. You can collect your lunch boxes at 1 p.m. between 1 and 3 p.m. from the lunch tent. 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. will be an interesting, beautiful program. Take home please in the inspiration hall. So don't miss the program from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you.
cauliflower and broccoli industry, they don't have a marketing division. They don't have anywhere to put the money into it. And so realize that a lot of the nutritional decisions, especially in this society, that have been made as a result of us also being subject to the marketing that's out there. So when we look at the data that is out there, and we're only touching the tip of the iceberg today, there's of course numbers and statistics to go to support all of this. But when we look at the things that are most plaque buildup, we're talking about things that harden the arteries, harden and narrow the blood vessels that supply two very vital organs, our brain and our heart. Those plaques are made of bad cholesterol. So some of you may be familiar with hearing LDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol is that bad cholesterol. Well, what is the source of that? It's animal products, whether it's poultry, meat, dairy, eggs, chicken, fish, all of that. That's where LDL cholesterol is. None of the food that is naturally occurring on Earth, fruit, vegetables, beans, other legumes, whole grains, none of those have any LDL cholesterol by definition. So that correlation seems pretty obvious, even to the point that there has been data that's now 30 years old, and science has very little to say this about, very few examples of this in chronic disease, but patients who have had cardiovascular disease and then adopted plant-based diets have actually reversed their plaque buildup, which is pretty huge. And you know, otherwise in our field in healthcare, chronic disease just stays chronic and it kind of gets worse and it continues over the age of a patient. But we're getting more and more evidence that diabetes, obesity, hypertension, almost all of the medical conditions that you see up here can be improved and in some cases reversed with plant-based diets. Now, this is not to say that this is a causative factor. So genetics play a role, age plays a role. There's so many other variables in our lifestyle. However, there is significant correlation between the fuel that we put in our bodies and the corresponding medical problems that come out as a result of that. Even within the world of cancer, there's data to suggest that dairy, in fact, has a very close correlative relationship with breast cancer. Colon cancer, if anybody follows the guidelines or if your own doctors have told you, you may have noticed that we've started doing colonoscopies to screen for colon cancer earlier. We used to start at 50 and now we start at 45. We're finding a lot more cancer at younger ages, which of course is not great news. The more promising news is we think that diet and other lifestyle factors can play a significant role in this. There's a lot of non-negotiable factors in our health. Like I said, our genetics, the fact that we're aging, we haven't found the fountain of youth yet, some exposures that we may have had in our childhood, those things we can't really do much about. However, what can we change? We can change exercise. We've all heard that. You're not hearing it for the first time from me. We can definitely change our nutrition. And so this is a major factor that we've got a fair amount of control over, depending on, of course, access to food, the willingness to shop and chop and prepare and have that food ready for you to eat when you're hungry. Next. So when we look at spiritual health and the relationship to nutrition, when we talk to patients in our office, as you can imagine, in an allopathic medical setting, we're not talking a tremendous amount about spirituality, but certainly there is a huge amount of compassion that can be used as the lens through which to apply a plant-based diet. In the context of living with a diet that's coming from a nonviolent source with vibrations of positivity, the same vibrations of positivity we use to prepare food, the compassion, the discipline, the source of nonviolence, these things all become more and more evident in the way that you live then and your own spiritual experience. And quite a few of you raised your hands here of already being plant-based, and it might be nice at the end to share what your own experiences are after having gone plant-based. But a lot of people will tell you that these are the types of features in their life and their experience that they notice have improved. A sense of gratitude for the food that the earth gives us, and at the same time, gratitude for the animals that we also share the earth with. Harmony in terms of the environment around us, a connectedness with the earth and nature around us. All of those things spiritually certainly are assets to us in experience. Anything else? Okay, next.
So a lot of people, again, as being physicians, actively seeing patients, when we talk about basically what's referred to as the protein myth, that protein can only come from these types of sources. Of course, we've got like meat and fish and all this stuff, but in our practice, we take care of a lot of people who identify as vegetarian, but they are vegetarian in that they take milk and eggs. And so they'll say to me, well, if you want me to try a plant-based diet, where's my son going to get his protein from? And we try to explain to them that protein doesn't just come from these sources. And what happens is society, media has said to us that these are the places that we need to get our protein from. But in fact, protein is readily found in so many other sources, as Shilpa said earlier, in terms of beans and legumes, vegetables, nuts. And so I think we undervalue where the protein comes from. Even other people we know that are vegan will say, yeah, I'm really struggling on where to get my protein from. And we always look at them, we say, your whole diet is full of protein. It's just not as obvious to you as society and even education has sort of taught us over the years that this is sort of where it needs to come from.
So the other thing to keep in mind is just like in traditional diets that are not necessarily plant-based, what you eat does matter. So clearly not all plant-based foods are healthy. I think we can agree French fries, not the best choice. Doritos, Oreos, not the best choice, just accidentally vegan. So you do need to make sure that the choices that you have on a plant-based diet are wholesome. And to be clear, the healthiest choices from a medical standpoint are whole food plant-based diets, meaning that they're not highly processed, that they haven't been through chemical treatment and fried and sort of ruined by all the things we humans tend to do to our food before we eat it. The other thing to keep in mind is this society puts a lot of emphasis on getting protein from animal sources. And if you think about it, the vast majority of the animals that are relied on as a food or milk source are inherently vegetarian. So they're making their own protein from grass and oats. And then humans are then consuming that sort of recycled version of protein. And what's the difference there? So we've taken the grass and oats, which I guess you could consider healthy. I have not had grass. And then added LDL cholesterol, saturated fat, antibiotics, hormones that the animals are treated with. And then all that gets recycled to become the protein that a human consumes. Whereas we've got, as humans, a rainbow of fruits, vegetables, nuts, berries, legumes, all these things to choose from and manufacture our own fat, our own muscle, without the fat. So just a reminder that the earth is covered in animals that are herbivores by nature and have amazing muscle and strength and capability. And these are the types of things that we need to keep in mind when we listen to that protein myth.
So why would somebody even choose a vegan diet? Like, why go through the effort? Well, some people may decide for the body effects. So their physical body, their mental, their mental health, or their spiritual health. Some people may do it for the environment. The animal agriculture industry is a very huge user of resources, whether it's electricity, water, gas. And then the byproduct of that is a lot of carbon emissions, which you've heard about climate change and these things, a lot of negative impact on our world. And so some people may choose to be plant-based because of the impacts of animal agriculture on the environment. And then some people will do it also for compassion for animals, or some combination of these three reasons. So sort of looking at this now through a spiritual lens, what is the worldly motivation for eating more plant-based? So again, compassion. Animal agriculture is rampant with exploitation and suffering, including in the dairy industry. These animals are known to be sentient, meaning they are social creatures that feel sadness, loneliness, pain, and more.
Motivations can also include respect for the earth and the environment that we live in. Reducing animal farming and related industries will improve greenhouse gas and methane emissions, improve land use and deforestation, and conserve water. More of these resources that can then be used to actually feed hungry people.
And then we always talk about, what can we do? Well, be the change, right? We talk about changing ourselves. So adopting a more plant-based diet or even a vegan lifestyle or cruelty-free lifestyle can result in tremendous change. This energy obviously can then propagate more change in the world we live in. So by changing who we are, we can then show the world, and then they can change. So what are sort of the next steps? Where do we go from here? Some of you identified early on that you are considering maybe, trying to adopt more of a vegan diet.
So the first thing that when I counsel patients, and obviously again in a medical setting, most of the motivation is for people to be healthier, and quite frankly, a lot of it is for weight management and just to feel better. I remind my patients that if we are making changes based on the focus being sort of our senses, how food tastes, the opportunities I get at the social situations in which I associate eating or drinking those foods, it's a very shallow motivating factor, right? We talk here about spirituality and working from the inside out and working with our values in mind and our original qualities. Part of that is being more soul conscious rather than being as body conscious. And making decisions like this, if rooted in a value system, it's a much easier commitment to stick to. If I left my pocketbook in the corner of the room, I'm fairly confident most of us have a value system that would mean that we would not walk away with somebody else's pocketbook. It's a much easier decision to make because that's grounded in a value system, no matter how much I need whatever's in that pocketbook. And so I explain to patients that if you can make a commitment change, rather than, oh, I can't have that, I can't have that, I can't have that, oh, that looks really good, oh, that smells really good. It's really hard because you're now playing victim and not being helpless. Whereas if you change your mindset and say compassion is the mindset that you decide to adopt, you're now in control. You've got the power. You're no longer a victim in making those decisions. It changes the ability and the ease with which you can stick to your discipline, if that makes sense. So easy fundamental things to do, and we are happy to go into this in more detail. Both of us and our children, by their own choice, live a plant-based lifestyle, and we can talk specifics, we can talk recipes, we could sit here and talk about food all day, quite frankly. But the simplest things to do are substitute foods. So I would encourage you to look at the areas in your diet that have the most plant-based presence. So if I've got a patient talking to me about the little bit of cream they put in their coffee and the rest of their life is fully plant-based, I'm not sure that I would tell them that they have to put a lot of energy into that, but certainly there are substitutes that they could use for that. If burgers is something that you love to eat, then fine, then you can start with making a substitution to a veggie burger. Now, to be clear, as a physician, I would remind you again that not all plant-based items are healthy. So the highly processed plant-based substitutes in the markets, the fake meats and so on, and the fake cheese and so, they're highly processed. They've got a fair amount of oil and saturated fat, but they're still a step in the right direction. So when we counsel patients, we tell them that it's a reasonable transition food. If you're still aiming to be healthier mentally, spiritually, physically, then you still want to try to land at whole foods at the end, but it's a reasonable way to get you there stepwise. I grew up in a traditional Gujarati household. I used to eat a lot of yogurt growing up. We eat Indian food at home regularly. So yogurt was kind of a big deal for me to have to find a workaround. So I make soy yogurt at home. Super simple, no different than making cow's milk yogurt, actually a lot easier because you don't have to boil the milk and make a mess like I do. So these substitutes are very easy. It takes a little bit of effort. So some of that focusing can be helpful. Like Nemish mentioned earlier, if you choose to, then the next steps that we would consider natural in this progression and journey would be considering living a life that's cruelty-free. And what that means is that if you have a compassion mindset and you think that all creatures deserve not to suffer for your reasons, nobody should suffer for my meal on the table, then consider buying non-leather, buying not a leather couch, or buying shoes that are man-made materials. And you would be surprised how easy it is. These things aren't sort of openly labeled vegan, but all it means is you look at the materials. You just read, you be a little bit more careful about what you're looking at and what you purchase, and little changes like that. Maybe when you buy your next car, you don't buy a leather interior. There's a lot of vegan leather, imitation leather products on the market now, and you just have to ask the right questions. The next step would be then also expanding that to our environment, to this beautiful earth that we all share. What can we do in addition to make that better? Electric vehicles, repurposing what we have at home instead of throwing away and buying and throwing away and buying, recycle, upcycle, those types of things. From our standpoint, that's all sort of within the same realm and scope of having a cruelty-free, earth-friendly type of lifestyle.
I just wanted to add in, sort of piggybacking on the last 2 points. Teslas are very popular these days. I'm sure somebody else in here has a Tesla as well. Electric vehicle, and guess what? Non-leather interior. You know, we can say what we want about the CEO, but he makes a good car.
And then the last thing I think in these stepping stones to bring it full circle and remember to function from the inside out is to practice tolerance. And my reference to this stems from the fact that as each of us is on our own spiritual journey, our health journey, physical health journey, keep in mind that other people around us may not make the same choices we do. And that may be members of your own household, it may be coworkers, it may be lots of people that you care and love about and spend time with. And just keep in mind that if our fundamental values are still grounded in compassion and tolerance, then we need to extend that to the people who may not choose to have the same lifestyle that we do, and not to judge and not to put ourselves above them because they choose to eat differently than we do. That's it.
We just wanted to share this slide. This is a slide that we use a lot with our families that, in our office when they are more interested in vegan diet. So we've all seen the food pyramid. So this is the vegan food pyramid. So the base, the foundation of the pyramid is our fruits and vegetables, followed by whole grains, followed by fortified dairy substitutes like soy milk and oat milk, along with beans and seeds, and then sparingly use plant-based oils. And so this is an image, if you would like to refer to it, you can find it online very easily. But we find it very informative.
So we are happy to take questions. That's the material that we had to present. We would be happy to take questions, comments, hear from any of your own experiences personally.
Hello, waiting for the mic, got it? All right, you've got a question. Now, because we're online, I'm going to ask you to speak into the mic your question, all right? All right, so here and then here.
Very nice, excellent talk. The big thing is the myth about the protein. I think that's something, everybody needs to kind of know, because I get the same question. Where's the protein? I'm lacking protein, and there's a big protein mania. I think literally everybody's taking more protein, and that excess protein converts into fat.
Yes.
So
100% right.
Just a comment.
So we didn't share the graphic, but we do have a graphic that shows like the typical protein content of a lot of plant-based foods. But then also, I think we overestimate how much protein the typical adult needs. Now, if you are a marathon runner, yes, your protein needs are a lot higher, but the typical adult might only need about 40 grams of protein a day. And I think most of us, especially if you're in a non-vegetarian or vegan diet, are like probably getting double that. And like you said, there can be negative health consequences related to that.
To clarify what she said, which I completely agree with, protein, excessive protein, which is what the typical American diet has in it, those extra protein calories are then converted to fat. So for someone who specifically is interested in weight management, that's not exactly going to work on your side.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting and good discussion. And just to follow up on the protein, not only it converts into fat, it also causes a lot of stress on your liver and kidney, because what protein, while you're converting to fat, the whatever is excreted, the nitrate, uric acid, and all that, that's the issue. My question is about vitamin B12. And there's a huge issue in vegan and vegetarian diet. And are you supplementing, asking people to take vitamin B12 along with it, and how much? And is there any vegetarian source anywhere we can take vitamin B12? Thank you.
Great question. Thank you for asking. So vitamin B12 is something that we all need very small amounts of in our diet, but unfortunately in a fully plant-based diet and in a lot of non-plant-based eaters as well. So even if people are eating a lot of meat, they don't get enough vitamin B12. And B12 is just one of the critical nutrients that we need. So yes, we do take a supplement. We buy a vegan supplement. It happens to be that we buy Kirkland Costco brand. It's a sublingual thing. I think we can say that here. And you don't even necessarily need to take it every day, but you do need a minimum amount of it. When I counsel my patients, I actually counsel all of my patients to consider taking a B12 supplement, even just a few times a week. And B12 classically is found in the dirt, is found in the bodies of animals and so forth. But these days, both animal agriculture and our produce is so over-treated, we often don't get the nutrients we would if we were sort of living in the older times. So B12 supplement is important, very important for plant-based eaters. Maybe not as critical for vegetarian, but like I said, I personally recommend it to all of my patients.
And also, like for example, I drink soy milk, and the brand I use has actually supplemented B12 into it. And so like Silk brand soy milk, they've added the B12 into it, and along with the calcium, the vitamin D, and all that other good stuff we look for with milk.
And I think
so
you
there
asked
are
about-
some foods that are supplementing it as well.
And I think you asked about dosing. So we actually only need about 2.5 micrograms a day. The lowest over-the-counter dosing I've ever seen is about 1,000 micrograms. So you're just gonna put the rest extra out in your urine. There's really no way to get around it. For whatever reason, the companies that make it don't make it in the micro quantities that we really need it.
Thank you. I just thought about the protein part. Khichdi, people that know what it is rice and dal, has all the essential amino acids. So if you eat khichdi every day, you got all the protein. You don't need anything else. Thank you.
And you're right. You know, like we could get into a more complex discussion about. So a lot of people say like that animal source of protein are going to be your complete sources, while plant-based sources sometimes are considered incomplete. But when you pair them up with one vegetable source with another bean source, you're going to get your sort of complete protein. And exactly correct. Like you get that in that combined type of dish, you'll get all the protein you need. Yes.
Very informative. My question is about the milk substitute. Soy milk, we talk about it. There are a lot of other things like almond milks and like that. Would you please comment on those as well?
What was the question part?
Almond milk. So is it any...
I can comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're right. So you're going to commonly find in your typical grocery store soy-based milk, almond, cashew, coconut, and oat, okay? If I'm counseling one of my pediatric, like one of the parents, you know, they're asking me what can I give my growing child for milk, I will steer them towards soy milk. And the reason for that is there is more nutrition in soy milk. There's plenty of protein and calcium. And so when we're looking to get milk, why do we need milk? We don't need milk, except it's an easy source of calcium. But if we're going to choose between soy and almond, presuming there's no allergies, then I do tell them to go towards soy because you will get a little bit of that extra protein. Almond milk is very deficient in most nutrients. You will get a little bit of calcium out of it. Oat milk, I think, is a very good substitute for somebody who is sort of transitioning away from cow's milk and is trying to go to a plant-based milk. I think oat milk is probably going to be your most similar milk to dairy milk. But I think nutritionally, soy is going to be like your 1 cup of soy milk is going to be your biggest bang for your buck, as they say.
You're asking about protein powders and protein supplements?
So they do make vegan protein powder. So our son is 24 years old. He's very athletic. He runs, he works out, lifts weight, the whole thing. So he does use sort of these vegan protein powders to sort of supplement everything in his diet and so forth. But those are all mostly soy-based proteins, I believe, that are in those products.
So no harm, but we still want to eat real food.
Yeah. And we always try to remind him, the food you ate has enough protein in it. But, you know, sometimes you just can't get over the fact that, you know, well, my muscle doesn't look as big right now.
Thank you very, very much for this. Very enlightening, very informative. In my household, my wife and I have an argument about whether khichdi should have butter or ghee. You've taken away both of those.
Yes.
Can you speak to oils, coconut oil, olive oil, and so on and so forth?
Yes,
please?
great question. So I'll start off with the other myth that came about maybe 3-4 years ago. There was a lot of social media buzz and a lot of, especially Indian families who cook a lot of khichdi and Indian-based foods, coconut oil. one of the highest in fat, so really not healthy for you. And unfortunately, I don't know where and how the buzz started, but that would probably be one of the least healthy forms of plant-based oils. In terms of the oils, as you probably all have heard, olive oils are considered very healthy. There's a benefit to them. However, all oils are by definition fat. So they're still going to have some fat content in them. So you'll see on our pyramid that they're still to be used sparingly. So if someone's trying to be sort of more health conscious, nutritious, those cardiovascular patients that I talked about earlier, and we're trying to reduce their fat content, not so much in this case for the LDL issue, but we'll encourage them to saute their, if you need to use a little bit of oils for your spices, fine. But then if you're really just trying to get your food to not stick to your pan, a little bit of water. Just keep adding water so that you're not just adding oil and more fat and calories and things that are not healthy for you. So olive oil on the good side, coconut oil on the bad side. The answers to that environmentally are also a little bit different. Palm oil, I think, is environmentally bad. I don't remember all the details of that, but that's sort of the two extremes that I would share.
And there are, we're touching on mostly the diet part, but when we start talking about the environmental things and then going back to the question about milk, almond milk, yes, is very maybe heavy resource user to grow an almond tree. It takes a lot of water to grow an almond. And so if you're really worried about the climate, maybe almond milk isn't your best choice of a milk. And then, like you said, the palm oil, probably not the best oil to be using.
And there are plant-based butters in lieu of the traditional butter or ghee.
But again, going back to what she had mentioned earlier, they're processed, and so use them sparingly.
Avocado oil falls within that, somewhere in the middle. So not as good as olive oil, not as bad as coconut oil. In the back?
Thank you for doing this. Just two quick questions, piggyback on the oil part. There's a myth about this olive oil. They say that you can use for frying foods. I know it's bad, but just for beginners, just somebody's trying to transition. Is that good or
So it's a temperature-related issue. There's some oils that are better at lower temperatures, so you'll find people putting olive oil on non-cooked things. They are used in salad dressings, as toppings, things like that. They're not supposed to be used in high heat settings, and it has to do with the breaking down of factors of the olive oil, and beyond that, I'm not an expert to explain, but different oils have different heat advisable levels to use them at. So the canola oils of the world, the vegetable oils of the world, they'll often be used for the frying because of the higher heat required.
But then when it comes to frying, like if we're talking about deep frying samosas or bhajiyas and stuff, no oil is good. Okay, there's not like, oh, well, they said at that Talk at Peace Village that I should use, canola over coconut. No. None of it is good. So like you're saying, which of these bad things should I pick from? So just sort of keep that in mind when you're trying to decide what oil to get. Yeah, just tip of the pyramid, sparingly.
Okay. And I think you talked about soy oil, soy milk for curd. Do you heat it and prepare?
Yeah, so really simple. I'll put it simply, and I actually have a couple of handouts if everybody's interested. So to use soy milk to make yogurt, you don't have to heat it up and boil it the way that we're used to. You do need a starter. So the first one I bought was from ShopRite. It's Silk unflavored soy milk, soy yogurt. And the ratio is about the same, a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons in a typical size container. But you have to purchase a soy milk product that has nothing besides 2 ingredients, soybeans and water. If it has any of the, I forgot we had it as a slide. If it has any other ingredients on it, you will, the preservatives, stabilizers, you will not get the fermentation that you need. I happen to own an Instant Pot. That's my easy way to keep my temperature stable to make oil or to make yogurt. I'm sure you all have your tricks. And so basically, literally I have my glass jar, pour in my milk, add the tablespoon or 2 of the starter, whisk it up or stir it up, and then put it in the Instant Pot. Obviously, just like cow's milk, the longer you leave it, you get a little bit of the sourness, which I love. The less you leave it, you won't have that sourness, but super easy to do.
But we did have to buy a soy milk yogurt
to start
with, because unless you can obtain soy-based culture.
So these are 2 of the ones. I'm sure there's other brands out there, but these 2 each only have water and soybean as ingredients.
This is an excellent session for me. The reason I am telling you, my daughter is a physician, she is a pediatrics And when I go their house, always have a problem with the grandchildren like my Indian food, putting oil, and every time me and my daughter had an argument, Mom, don't put the oil, don't put the oil. But at least today you solved the dynamic problem of working with my daughter and
Good luck.
grandchildren.
We are enjoying the information, thank you. The almond milk which you get in the coffee shop to put in coffee, how good is it?
Good tasting, good healthy,
Yes.
good healthy.
Yes.
I don't think it would be any different than the almond milk that you would purchase anywhere else. The bad stuff in that coffee would probably be any additional calories from other additives and sugars, but otherwise perfectly fine and comparable to the almond milk you would buy otherwise.
And you can make yogurt out of that?
I've not tried out of almond milk. I have only done yogurt out of soy milk. Almond milk, if you check the consistency, so he was talking about the oat milk being a little bit more thicker. Soy milk is a little bit more thicker. Almond milk is a little bit more watery. I don't know how thick the yogurt would turn out, so I don't have experience with that.
I mixed it both, the regular milk, 1%, and almond milk. And it came out okay with the regular homemade culture of yogurt.
Okay.
But I wanted to check because I was not sure if that almond milk was really almond milk and good.
I don't think we could answer that for you.
Okay, thank you.
And if you buy any commercial, like in the store, almond-based yogurts, they're going to have a lot of thickeners and stabilizers in there that you're probably not going to be adding to homemade yogurt.
Right up here, sure. Oh, sorry, in the back then.
Sorry, just one quick question. Could you suggest some like menu just for beginners, just to see?
So
if
a
we could
menu?
go- Yeah.
So, okay, so that's a great question. So if I have a patient that asks me that, doctor, just tell me what to eat. I have to meet them where they're at, right? If I tell my all-American patient, go home and eat Indian food every day, that's just not gonna fly. So I would tell you, if you start within the context of what you already eat and adjust that as needed, right? So if you are used to a lot of creamy sauces, then you change your cream to, instead of adding milk or heavy cream, you would add in soy milk or unflavored soy milk or any non-dairy plant-based milk. And so your fundamental basis, you don't really need me to tell you what to eat because you're going to start with the bottom of that pyramid. Your fruits, your vegetables, your beans and legumes. At least in a traditional Indian diet, we are blessed with all kinds of colors of those beans and legumes and vegetables. So there's no competition amongst the vegetable world or the fruit world, or the bean world for that matter. So eat what makes you happy, just prepare it in a way that's more smart than maybe folks have done in the past.
What are your thoughts on A2B milk, A2 milk?
So it's still cow's milk. So our thoughts are equally bad.
Okay, equally bad.
I get asked this, we have a large Indian population in our community that come to see us for their primary care.
Yeah.
I get asked this question every week, and I just say to them, yes, all milk is not good. So
Cow's milk.
I'm not going to give you an opinion because my opinion is your child doesn't even need that milk.
And a quick question, this little deviation. Do you suggest an air fryer or not?
So we love our air fryer. So you can, I like crispy, crunchy food. So you can do a lot with your air fryer with little to no oil or fat, which is how we would typically fry. So, and if you are really willing to experiment a little bit, you can take any lentil or bean that you want, toss it in your flavoring, add your lemon, add your paprika, chili powder, whatever you want. Put very limited oil, and in that case, I use olive oil, and then put it in your air fryer, and you've got your crunchy snack instead of your chips or garbage that you buy from the grocery store. So we love our air fryer. We use it a lot.
And also environmentally, sometimes when it's just the two of us at home, the air fryer is all we need to warm something up versus turning on the entire oven, which uses a lot of electricity. And so even from that standpoint, the air fryer is probably fits in a little better with what we are trying to do at our home.
The other comment on milk, and I suspect dairy and milk and cheese may be a big part of an obstacle for a lot of people in changing to plant-based. I would remind you, and I share this with my patients, is we are animals by nature. We're creatures. We just happen to be humans. We're the only animal that drinks another animal's milk. Like, if you think about that cognitively, it doesn't make sense. We don't need cow's milk for nutrition any more than we need a goat's milk or a dog's milk or a cat's milk, right? And for many people in the world, a fair amount of the South Asian population and lots of the African population, we are biologically lactose intolerant after a point in our life. We were all intended to drink our own mother's milk, but we were not intended biologically, evolutionarily, to drink another animal's milk into adulthood. It would be easier if they didn't make so many yummy things out of it, but having put that aside, digestion is often much better when you drop the cow's milk. A lot of people suffer from gas, bowel habit changes, cramps, bloating, and when they take the cow's milk out of their diet, and it really has to be pretty strict, it doesn't take much to irritate digestive systems, a lot of people will find they just feel better, but they never sort of put those two and two things together.
All right, we have time for one last question.
Nice presentation and discussion. Indian food is higher in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates convert into LDL. That's one of the source for triglycerides. Carbs will convert into triglycerides, which is more dangerous than even LDL. I heard recent studies. My question is, what are your tips on carb control? I know whole food, high fiber, whole brown rice. What is your tips?
So bottom line, good carbs and bad carbs. So nutritionally empty carbs, pretzels, white bread, white pasta, crackers, Ritz, bagels. There's really not a lot of nutrition. They're highly processed carbs. Absolutely, the whole bottom of that pyramid has carbs. Every vegetable has carbs. Broccoli, cauliflower, every bean, every lentil that we eat has carbs. However, the package that it comes in makes all the difference. So that package has the nutrients, has the fiber, and it's a complex carbohydrate. So the way that it breaks down, and to correct you, there's no LDL in any of those carbohydrates, even the processed ones. There's no LDL unless it's come from an animal source. So the good carbs, fantastic. That package counts completely. And then you've been waiting patiently.
You lucked out.
Thank you. A question about the glutens, because there is a lot of talk about the gluten is bad, gluten is good, like especially, when we have the grains and kind of thing, and a lot of sensitivity and a lot of disorders being reported with the gluten directly correlated. So what's your take on that?
So I'll do this really briefly. So gluten, the reason there are gluten-free products on the market is there is a genuine condition that is a genuine allergy called celiac disease. Only those people that have that medical condition are truly allergic to gluten. The sources of gluten, generally speaking, are flours and breads and things in that category. A lot of people over time, since gluten-free products have been put on the market, have found that they are gluten sensitive. This is not necessarily a medical condition. It's definitely not an allergy with implications like the patients with celiac disease have. But if people are gluten sensitive or just feel better not having a lot of gluten, fine, more power to you. You're not really missing super valuable nutrients. Nothing on the bottom half of this pyramid is significant for gluten. The grains are basically where that comes in, but there's lots of workarounds to that you can still be healthy. So quickly, that would be the best thing I would tell you.
And I'm just going to jump on that. A lot of times vegan and gluten-free sort of get lumped in the same category dietarily. They're two separate issues that have nothing really to do with each other.
See, you guys like talking about food as much as we do.
Hey, I know. So anyone who came in as a non-vegetarian and is beginning to drift towards vegetarianism, did they convince you? A little bit? Yeah, a little bit? Anyone headed towards veganism? Really? Okay, amazing.
We were just here to educate, not to convert.
I know, they're not converting you, but it was interesting, no? It was very interesting. And especially this spiritual, physical parallel. I hadn't thought about that so much. So they probably will be around for a bit. So we're going to go ahead and turn the room because we have a talk starting at 12:30 on the science of happiness. But you can look for them and just continue your many questions. They're very patient souls. And then
You'll find
tonight-
us at the Connecticut booth if you need us.
So then also, just so you know, at 4 to 6 this evening, there's a whole program over on the other side of the hall. All right? So thank you so much.
Yes. So I've got a question online that I'm going to address. The question is, why do so many vegetarians have high LDLs? So besides animal products and dairy products,